Perfect. We are calling to order the meeting of the Oconee County Public Library Board of Trustees for May 24th. Our first action is to approve the minutes that Blair shared from the March 22nd meeting. Do we have any edits or a motion to accept as they were presented?
I motion we accept the minutes as presented.
Perfect. Do we have
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. The minutes are approved, Blair. Next, we have an opportunity for public comments. Do we have anybody that would like to comment?
I think now would be a good time then, because we don't necessarily have it on the agenda later, but now would be a good time, I think, to allow Martha, if you want to, you can come forward and just.
I don't really,
Well, you can just kind of tell us who you
I
are.
wanted to come and see a local library board in action. I live around the corner, so this was an easy trip for me. I just, based on home rule, all of our libraries are under the control of their board of trustees, their county council for funding, and their library director. All programs, all funding come through you guys. The state does not have a role in that. Rather, every county has its own policy. Every county has its own library system. And yours is a very good one. I read about it. I read your stipulations and bylaws, collections policy, borrowing policy, children's policy. It's very good, very complete. There are other counties that have large cities in them, and theirs are equally complete and responsive to their communities, but they're not just like yours. And that's the way it should be. So anyway, I won't talk anymore about this. I'm just proud to be here and glad to see all of you working hard for our county.
And for those of you that did come in a little bit later on, and also for the record, this is Martha Murdershaw. She is the chair of the State Library's Library Board, and is from 3rd District. Those are all based on congressional districts, so she's our person on the State Library Board.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here with us.
I'm glad that I have to say my term ends at the end of June, so anyway.
Wonderful. Next up, we have a Friends report. Blair, do you happen to have any
Okay.
minutes from?
I did include the sale figures in your background package, but I will just point out a couple of things again because I think they're worth getting on the record. The sales for March, all told, just shy of $3,600. And then the sales for April, a little over $3,600, $3,624.58. They have started, and April's numbers were particularly good. They have started selling online. Some of the books that are a little more difficult for them to sell, or even some they've gone through and scanned them and found out they could get a lot more than just their $3, $4, or $5 that they put on them. So they have actually started selling online and are doing well with that. It started a little slow in March, but by April they had made $690 just in online sales. They had 5 opportunities. Now that they're doing the sale weekly, they had 5 opportunities in March because it was a month with 5 Thursdays. They did $1,837.50 just at the Thursday sales in March. And they have started taking credit cards. I don't know if you noticed that in the background information. They have started taking credit cards, and they have seen a nice increase in the Thursday sales because of that. So all told, they are, doing really well. I mean, they're making now in 1 month what they might have made in a quarter prior to COVID. So combination of being able to accept credit cards, the online sales, they are doing very well at the moment. That has given them some opportunities to do some new things. You might also have seen there was a in the background report about it, and we'll be sending out a little bit more information about it. They'll have some information in their newsletter as well, but they funded a new microfilm reader for our South Carolina room, so we have now 2 computerized ones. It's a little bit newer model. It'll do about the same thing as the other model, but they are just really nice because unlike the old-fashioned machines that you could basically only view and print, these you can isolate something, you can blow up an article, you can, still print the whole page or just a little bit of the article or whatever you want on that. And that was all funded by the Friends, this go-around. So they have been able to be really generous with us, and the sales are doing great.
Thank you. Next up, we have committee reports. First, the Finance Committee, if we have any updates.
I have nothing to report on unless Blair has anything to add with the budget season.
Anything that we want to discuss on budget or whatever we'll bring up during the agenda later, so that's fine, thank you.
Perfect. Policy and Personnel.
There is nothing to report outside of what the director has reported in his report, which is always really thorough. Thank you.
Wonderful. Building and Grounds. And Community Relations.
I have stuff to report.
Always stuff going on in the community,
Always
right?
stuff happening in the community, right? So I have been working with Derry, Derry McBride's our new president of the Chamber of Commerce, and she is very supportive of our library. Actually, she now has a library card. She didn't have one a month ago, but I've been doing the meet and greets in the morning in Walhalla and Westminster, and then the after hours as well, just meet and greets and just schmoozing and getting to know people and finding out, what their businesses are, telling them about the library, what we have going on, and as well as I went to the Senior Expo at the Shaver Complex this past Saturday and met a lot of good people. And I know that we have talked about in the past of doing like a community resource directory of some sort. Well, come to find out, there's already 3 out there. And I had them sent to me. One is from Senior Solutions. Jim Corey sent me these 2 actually. Incredible directories. And then the third one's coming to me from CERT, the County Emergency Response Team.
Right.
Also has a huge one they put together after the tornadoes a year or so ago. So I'm still waiting on that. So I'm not sure how, what we want to do with those, Blair. But I didn't know. There's already a lot of work done on these so far. So we want to house them in the library or?
Actually, the one that Mr. Corey sends out is on our website now.
Okay, I have 2 from him.
Well, the one that
This
you have
one?
there in your left hand, that's the one,
Okay.
the big comprehensive one that he sends out quarterly.
Okay.
That one is on the website.
Great.
That one is on the library website, and I mean, even though it's a lot of text, there are some links in there and stuff.
Sure.
I've captured the hot links, so
Okay.
you click on something, it'll go there, the phone numbers. I mean, whenever he has an update, and I ran into him at the data walk, the DHEC data walk that I recently attended, and I'm on his list.
Good.
I think he was sending them maybe to Sue Andrus, our branch services librarian before.
Okay.
But I'm on his list now, so as soon as he sends an update,
Okay.
I'll simply replace those listings on the website with the latest listing that he has.
That he has,
So
okay.
that comprehensive listing that he sends out is always on the website, on the library's website.
Okay, well then CERT also has one too. The response team also has one that they're going to email to me
Okay.
that I'll send to you.
We may have to find a slightly different place so that it's not just
Okay.
overwhelming if somebody
Right.
is right in one place.
Right.
But, yeah, we can use that one as well.
Okay, all right.
And Liz, if I could interject, again, we always have 211 for United Way.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I feel like that's the first one, actually. That's the first thing he has listed. So I
And
was
Jim
really
does update that regularly,
Yeah,
because
I
I've been
was-
getting
I'm
it for years.
thrilled. I was
Yeah.
surprised and thrilled that these were already out here. Because I know we had talked about it. I know Empower Oconee has talked about it as well. So that was just a really wonderful revelation. And I think that's it. That has to do with marketing and outreach. Do you have anything at all to add? No? Okay.
I do have a question dealing with community
Sure.
engagement and outreach. And this is for Blair.
Okay.
Do we have a status on the bookmobile being available for Juneteenth or not?
You and I need to talk about that. I was
Okay.
actually going to talk to you about it after the meeting.
Okay.
I mean, it can be there, but I think just because of the number of staff hours I have available, and the
I knew
fact
that it was, yeah.
in the evenings, the programs get more towards like the music and the entertainment and everything else. I don't remember exactly what we did last year, but I was thinking similar,
Okay,
11 to 2, 11 to 3.
that would work.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it
Okay.
after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up to the chairman's report, I don't have a whole lot. Blair sent out about the summer reading, which opened up, I believe, for registration yesterday. So I encourage everybody to look. There's a beautiful little calendar online where you can see all the great activities that are happening. So very excited about that. And then I did want to highlight and ask Blair, honestly, for his opinion about this. I know that throughout the information that we receive, we continue to hear Wi-Fi issues and IT challenges just with regulations I think that the county has. But I didn't know if there were things we could do to be helpful with that or to encourage.
Now, are you talking about like the Wi-Fi in the building, or are you talking about our MiFis?
I think it was the USBs not being able to go in and having to use
USB is just going to be a
Microsoft
problem.
and all of those things.
Use of USB is just going to be a problem because that is a security issue, and our IT department simply, there's no workaround that they can find, and they just don't want to give that access because it allows direct access to the drives and to the network. So that is something that pretty much has been a hard no from my IT folks. Now, our Wi-Fi issues, we are still having a few issues with the new Wi-Fi antennas, the new access points. They are working through that right now. That seems to be a combination of a software issue and a settings issue. And they're actually working with the vendor, the manufacturer, right now to try to get those things fixed. There's 2 or 3 things that they've tried already. It has worked to a point, still not working with certain devices or not working well with certain devices. Seems to work okay with mobile devices. Some laptops seem to be really having a struggle with it. They are working through that issue right now. And then as far as like the little mobile hotspots that we loan out, I have something on that in my report.
Perfect. Well, I think as we continue to work through those, if there's anything we can do to help encourage the importance of that area of access for what y'all do, please let us know.
So as far as USB, if some of the, if some of the community comes in and they need something downloaded, they just have the option to print? Do they have that option?
You can print, if you do have USB and you just need to print something, you can actually do that from
the printer.
our.
But I mean, if they're
Xerox.
online, like if they were to come in and job searching or whatever, and they wanted to download something, they can't download it, I understand that, but can they print it off?
They would have to go to they can put a USB into, because the printers are, especially the front one is not networked, they can print from it and they can scan to it. Like, let's say they needed to, put a resume, they can, scan it to a USB through the copier. And then, we're not making a big deal out of this because we don't want everybody doing it, but we can do it on our
But they can't
computers
get it
at
from
the desk if
online
they
to the
really
printer?
are, in need of sending something, but they cannot do it at each individual internet workstation. No.
Okay.
That's correct.
And now we're up to the director's report. Back to you, Blair.
All right. You all
That
did.
sounded like a game show.
I'm sorry, what?
Sounded like a game show. Back to you, Blair.
Back to you, Blair.
Back to you. Okay, I'll keep it very brief because I tried to be as thorough as I could in the background material, which hopefully you all got a chance to read. I will bring up a couple of things though. We are, it is in later in our agenda, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but as far as our staffing is concerned, we are in the process of hiring the social worker. We've chosen our candidate that is somewhere in the continuum of HR, background checks, whatever, wherever they are in that. I don't know exactly where they are. We sent the name over last week, and I know HR is working on it. Our HR department here in the county is also short one person right now, and so that's, maybe holding up things. But we have chosen our person, and we do also have a circulation manager in place now, Tucker Brown. He actually interned with us for a little while he was working on his bachelor's in library science. I think at some point he's intending on getting a master's in library science, but he is currently on board now as our circulation manager at the Walhalla Library. So we kind of changed our structure a little bit. Instead of having a branch manager and assistant manager, and then having myself and the branch services librarian also in the building and kind of being top heavy with leadership, we do now have basically, I kind of guess in the branch manager role, that's Sue Andrus in a way. She supervises the other branch managers anyway, so she kind of has become the default branch head at Walhalla. But then in place of the assistant manager, we have the circulation manager, which is Tucker, and he pretty much fills all the roles, if you will, or all the job listings or roles, if you will, of what our assistant manager used to do. So managing the front end, managing the part-time staff, managing any exceptions and all that kind of thing. And then, of course, if anything comes up that he can't handle, they throw it to either Sue or myself, this is since we're in the building. But so he has kind of taken that place. That freed us up another position by not having both the branch head and an assistant branch head in that. So we do currently are interviewing, or will start interviewing for a full-time youth services assistant, which is, you mentioned summer reading. If you've seen the calendar, she could use some help. So we are very fortunate to be able to free up and make it's not a new position. I mean, basically all we did was shuffle some chairs, but that did allow us to finally, for a long time, we've been asking for a full-time youth services assistant. Kind of ended up doing it ourselves, which is fine. The county is at least gonna, it probably resulted in some small changes in salaries, and the county's not gonna take that money away from us, so that's a good thing. We may be able to do some different things next year. May also be able to kind of shuffle enough stuff around that if something does happen with this grant, we can keep our social work person, or at least keep them for a few less hours, but keep them on board. So there's a lot of good news in our staffing there. We are losing one long-time part-time. Lois Martin is leaving us here at the end of this week, actually, and she's been a long-time part-timer at our Walhalla branch, so we'll be filling that position fairly soon as well. And then at the branches, we are in fairly good shape, fully staffed right now at the branches. Sorry if you heard that online, it was me knocking. Don't want to jinx that, but we are currently in pretty decent shape with staffing. So if we can get our social work person on board, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the agenda, we get that person on board and kind of get moving with that program. Of course, that is a grant-funded position, so that's not part of our positions within the county. Although, maybe one of these days it can be. I mentioned the MiFi units that we actually check out. The library, the state library, those were given to us from the state library through, at first, a CARES Act grant, and then they extended it for another year through an American Rescue Plan Act grant. That all came to an end Sunday the 22nd. We are going to pick them up. We are going to just work directly with Khajiit, the vendor, and we're actually getting a pretty good deal on these things to keep them unlimited. Now, there'll still be certain things, high bandwidth stuff that they won't have access to just simply because it'll tear into our bandwidth. But rather than going through the county, which we had looked at one point, they have a Verizon account that would have been a lot more expensive. Instead of like $40 a month per device, I think we're getting it for $18 per month per device. So we are going to continue with those. There is a small lag, though. They are picking up the contract after 1 June in our new fiscal year. They gave me a month. They did a month contract to get me from June to July, and then 1 July it'll be the annual, and they'll pick up the fiscal year. So they ended on the 22nd, and so that we could get them back in, make sure everything was working, maybe get back in some that had been missing for a while. We said, hey, just start us on June 1st. They might have been able to prorate us for a couple of days, but we just said, start us on June 1st. So there is about an 8-day lag in there from the 22nd to June 1st, 8-9 days. And we'll get them all back in, hopefully get them refurbished, make sure everything's in them, supposed to be in them, all that kind of stuff, and then begin lending them back out again. When we got them, they were part of a homework center kind of situation from the state library, but now that we've got them in our system and we'll be picking up the plan, these are going to be loaned out to just, like any other device or thing that we have. So they'll still have some limits on them, but they are going to be available for just everybody pretty much to be able to use. And then, like I said, when we talk, we'll talk a little bit more about our social work in the, later on in the agenda. So that's pretty much all I have on director's report.
Perfect. Do we have any questions?
I do, I can ask you, because the program concerns much of the equipment from Empower Oconee is now available, but some have not been received. Do you know what? It's because I have a meeting tomorrow.
I want to say, and I remember getting your email, it's just I think I was on vacation that week, so it kind of got lost in the shuffle, but I want to say the only thing that we haven't gotten is the pickleball set.
Okay,
I think, but I'll double check, I'll make myself a note to check with our acquisitions librarian tomorrow.
okay. I have a Zoom at noon.
Okay?
Yeah,
I'll try to find out
I'll
and shoot
track
you
it
an
down.
email.
okay, thank you very much.
I think because she took care of it before she went out on a medical leave, I think our cataloger, Bethany, had anything that we had, she went ahead and got done so it could get out to the branches.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure everything that we were supposed to have, at least in this first round, I know there'll probably be
Okay.
some stuff we want to add down the road.
Sure.
But I want to say the only thing we haven't gotten yet that's still kind of back ordered or
Okay.
we didn't.
I'll find out
receive all
about
that,
it, yeah,
was the pickleball, but
Okay.
I'll double check that to be sure for you.
awesome.
Could I ask, is any of that available on the bookmobile to be able to be checked out?
Not really, but just because of space, issues. They could, I mean, most of the people that use the bookmobile, I mean, I guess there might be a few, but most of the people that use the bookmobile also, do go to the branches a good bit.
Okay.
So they could check it out from Westminster if they're Long Creek, or they could check it out from Seneca or Westminster if they're Fair Play, that kind of thing. And just space-wise, I mean, we really, really try to economize. She doesn't even carry a full complement of the launch pads or any of the kits or that kind of stuff, just simply because of space on the bookmobile. And sort of the rules we have set up, because, I mean, the way the bookmobile operates, a lot of her due dates and everything, because she only goes like every 2 weeks or whatever, a lot of her due dates are also very different. So it just, it would be really tough to,
I mean, I didn't think it could be spontaneous, but if someone said, hey, I know the bookmobile's coming to this location, can they make sure they pack a pickleball set or whatever,
Yeah.
that's what- Anyway, that's fine,
and then the problem is getting it back, that kind of stuff. I mean, we talked about that, but and also too, just on bookmobile, it's just the sort of, not only space issues, but just like what the bookmobile does, it's just, it's a little hard to fit that in,
Okay.
the way the bookmobile's organized.
I have two questions, and it's on the budget.
Sure.
First of all, seeing that we're at 90% this close to the end of the year, I think that's pretty good. Since we're almost at the end of the year. But number one, have we compensated for what gas is doing for next year? Because I noticed
And the
we're a
reason
little
I
bit
hesi-
over this year, but next year is probably
The
gonna be
reason I
crazy.
hesitate on that is that when we had our budget meeting with the county administration in February,
I know.
and you could already see that it was going up, and pretty significantly, I asked for X. But now it's at Y, and, the budget pretty much is already in, I mean, it's had 2 readings. So I know there is, the opportunity to move some money in between line items. So if it comes to that, and also they have, some discretionary funds that they can help out. I mean, obviously, we won't be the only department dealing
I know,
with
yeah.
dire fuel issues. I mean, any of the departments that run a vehicle, so roads and bridges, the rock quarry, the solid waste, facilities maintenance, anybody that runs a vehicle is gonna be in the same boat, that we are, and I mean, even with diesel is, I mean, I think we were at $200 the last time we filled up the bookmobile, But that's where we are. So we did ask for more, and then we probably need more than that, but it'll be there when we need it.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be there
Then,
when we need it.
the other question, and this is kind of loaded, but not really. Is Seneca charging us too much for water? Because I noticed that's the only one we're over on the water line item.
not,
What is happening with that?
some of them, we kind of have to adjust depending on, a lot of times too, it's like, okay, there's an extra bill in there just by the way the month fell or something, that kind of thing. So I don't think it's a problem per se. I think it could have just been the way the billing cycle fell,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We also had a lot of landscaping done,
Yeah.
remember? And so I suspect
In
with that,
Seneca.
there's probably a little bit more watering than they anticipated when they put that budget together. I don't know that to be the
Yeah,
fact,
because
but.
we do provide, when the Lincoln Hills Garden Club does comes and does the planting and did the trees and all that kind of stuff, we gave them the key to the hose outside. So that's also quite possible,
Gotcha.
because that would have been a pretty significant, especially for the bed in the front and our 3 new red maples, that would have been pretty significant.
And it's been dry up until yesterday,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing I saw, and you may touch on this a little bit later, I know we talked about it, but the meeting that you had with SCDOT on the Westview street over there.
And the reason why, I know at one point in time you had offered,
Yeah.
to be involved. The reason I never even contacted you, it was just a very brief fact finding, like, what do you want to do with this? And Kyle Reed, Roads and Bridges, head of Roads and Bridges, explained to him what we were talking about. The guy gave us some of the measurements and things for like what would need to be, and so we're kind of at a point right now where they've tossed it back now to SCDOT and they're looking at, can we make this happen? What's the impact on like the one-way? Will we have enough room? Because he showed them, measurements of the street that's there and all that kind of stuff. How many spaces are we gonna get out of it? That's where they are right now.
So it's in SCDOT's court
It's
now,
back
we're just
in
waiting to hear
DOT's
back from
hands
them.
at the moment.
Perfect, thank you.
That is correct.
Do you have any additional questions?
Thank you, Blair.
Yes, thank you. Moving to old business, first we have some updates on the grant, which I know you mentioned a little about the position, but do you have any additional information, Blair?
Okay, I will say that we have, as I mentioned before, we have our person. They're not officially hired yet, but we do have our person coming on board. We actually had our first, as the one of the libraries that got awarded a grant, we had our first quarterly meeting today with the folks from Center for Rural and Primary Healthcare, along with all the other libraries, the cohorts from the first year. So they're about a year and a half in now, and then we're a few months in. And we had a meeting with them today. So Sue Anderson and I both, she's the project lead, and I as director, we both sat in on that meeting. Some really good information. There are some of the libraries that are kind of about where we are in terms of still in the hiring process and figuring out kind of what they want to do and that kind of thing. And it also sounds like our initial plan, which, I mean, I'll just come out and be quite candid with you, we put together very quickly because the deadline to apply for the grant was looming on us. It sounds like we still have a pretty good plan in terms of what we want this person to do and the sort of payoff results. What do we do if we can't get funding again and it really is only a year position, that kind of thing. So we are actually in pretty good shape. I feel like we're kind of a little bit behind because, the clock is ticking on the grant. It runs out at the end of next May, but I actually feel like we're in better shape. That meeting today made me feel a little better. I think we're actually in better shape than I thought we were. So we are on track. We do have another quarterly meeting, I believe, at the end of August. And so by that time, we'll actually have some results and some information to actually provide to them. And we do have a good bit of assistance from Clemson Rural Health and their social worker that's here in Walhalla. So she will be, as soon as we get our person on board, she will be helping and meeting with our person, probably a number of times. And then we also do have a lot of assistance from Union County. They were one of the first to do this and their person is actually on the library staff. I mean, our person will be on staff, but they actually created a person, it's a much smaller staff than we have. They actually created a kind of a combination social worker, assistant director. We're not in any shape to do that, of course. I mean, that makes it to where that person's on the budget, but I'm not gonna get, if I can't get a new position for youth services, I'm not gonna get a new position for social work. But hopefully, once they see the effectiveness of it, then I can either go to county council or find funding down the road from Clemson, the federal government, whatever, to get a new grant to carry this forward. But that's where we are right now.
I know, Blair, we talked last week about possibly, since it's converted to a part-time position, that those extra funds might be able to go for a translator. Have you been able to approach them on that at all?
Today's meeting was fast, and I didn't really have time to bring that up to her, but I am going to be talking to Alante Price. She is our direct contact program coordinator, and I will ask her about that, because I've got to get with her on budget anyway, because we are going to have to make adjustments, because we did convert it to a part-time, because that's what worked best, really for us and for our chosen candidate. So that's why we did that. And I think it's gonna work out better, and it could also mean then that since it's not quite as expensive, down the road, it can be something that'll either be easier to find another grant for, or easier for the county to pick up.
Any questions? Okay. Next on old business, we have to discuss the strategic plan. So Blair sent us and shared information that he gathered from the staff and from all of the branches, with kind of updates on where things stand. So hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review that. And I think now it's open for discussion what our next steps would be, whether we would like to put together an ad hoc committee to review all of the information that was provided and then determine if we want to update the current plan, extend the current plan, or begin on a new plan, or if we want to decide that without an ad hoc committee. It's open for discussion.
I feel like you two had decided maybe last time that you were gonna handle that. Did I hear that right? Like, we were waiting on hearing back from staff. Well, but that was the purview of the, policy, policy and personnel committee did I not hear that right last time?
It didn't come from me, but someone might have said it, yeah.
I think it was discussed, but I don't know
Okay.
if it was never brought to a motion or anything to that extent.
I just remember being an advocate for hearing from the staff about
Yeah.
Okay,
where they were with the strategic plan that
Right.
got postponed by COVID,
okay,
what they had met, what they thought needed to change, and then from there, we could decide, like was just brought up, should we create a separate committee to review those,
okay.
or what we need to do going forward?
And
Gotcha.
And I think in glancing through these reports, and just my takeaway from it is, there are a lot of things in our current strategic plan that I think, need to be revised. So I think the idea of just continuing with the strategic plan that we had previously, probably not our best option. My suggestion would be, is we either reevaluate it, or I don't think starting from scratch, because there are a lot of things in here
That need to continue.
that need to continue, but I think we can use it as a framework and build something that actually works. One of the things that caught me in here, I guess there was and Blair, correct me on this, but there was some kind of communication system that the library used briefly that had some sort of issue with somebody installing on a home computer, and and it's in our strategic plan that we implement that. Things like that need to be taken out. There was a lot of talk about communication and about training too, that I think, some sort of committee, and that's,
Manuals, job description manuals and things like that. I agree with you 100%. And one, I think we need to applaud staff for their honest, heartfelt responses, because when I read this, I'm like, wow. I thought they did a really nice job. And I agree, if we use this as a framework, but it needs some things deleted, some things added, and I want it to feel fresh. So I think we are going to have to do a little research and add new, so.
Well, and I think we need to work with each one of the branches to hear from them and let them have a lot of input, since they're the ones carrying out the plan.
absolutely.
As to what the plan looks like, that's not something I feel like we're at the capacity to do for them, but we need to work with them. So, I don't know.
I do think potentially a smaller committee to do that, rather than all of us trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I agree with the editing, because I also looking at it, either things have gone stale, for lack of a better term, like that type of, it doesn't fit in our kind of semi-post-COVID world anymore, or new things need to be added. But I think a committee that's smaller, that can reach out to different staff members to get input, or through Blair. to get input.
If everyone's comfortable with it, between now and our next meeting, I will work with Blair. And we'll put together a small committee under policies and personnel. And we'll address that and come back with a plan for everyone to bless moving forward. But I think this isn't something that's going to be done overnight.
Right.
Or, between meetings. I think that we really have to listen to each one of the branches that have different objectives that they want to reach.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll put that in form of a motion. I don't know how to word that. Go ahead, Madam Chair.
We'll make a motion that the strategic plan next steps will be evaluated by the Policy and Personnel Committee, and that Shelby will reach out to us to assist with that, but that we will get our update from that committee at the next meeting.
A second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved, Blair. On to new business. We have a discussion of building maintenance and parking.
Okay, just a couple of quick things on that. Kind of already talked a little bit about it, but just to update you, I think I don't remember if we talked about it last time, or I know I put it in the background, but the striping did get done at the Seneca Library. There was some discussion of doing some resealing and crack repair at Seneca. But since they've restriped it, we could have that done and then restripe it again. But frankly, once they did the striping and everything, got a look at it, it's really, other than it being very sun faded, which that's, it's not dark anymore, but the striping looks good, and there's really not any need to go into spending money right now. That's something that we can revisit with Roads and Bridges if, the parking lot does get in worse shape or whatever, but the parking lot surface itself is actually in pretty good shape. We don't have to worry about resurfacing or at least sort of sealing and filling any cracks right now. It's not really that bad. Since the striping has been done and it looks good, frankly, Roads and Bridges Director Kyle Reed and I said, maybe we'll wait until the stripes fade again, and then that'll be something we'll look at next time. So that's kind of off the agenda for now. I know that is something that we had talked about in the past, but it's not really a dire need. We kind of thought if we were gonna restripe it anyway, let's get this done at the same time, and then COVID kind of made it to where we didn't get good bids and that kind of thing. It got desperate enough with not being able to see the lines and safety, we just went ahead and striped the thing anyway, and then once we got a look at it, we said, well, maybe we don't need to seal it all that soon. So I think the consensus between Kyle and myself was just let's wait till the next time we need striping, which may be a couple of years, and then we'll look at resealing and filling cracks. So that's kind of off the table for now. We are, again, as I mentioned to Cliff, we are to the point pretty much of it's back in SCDOT, Transportation's ball court as to how we're gonna proceed on Westview, but it looks like our hope, our desire is to create Westview as a one-way street, put in parallel parking there, and then keep our green space, keep our lot intact, which is what we're proceeding with. That's the plan. Roads and Bridges is on board with that. And as I say, right now, it's back in DOT just to get us back online. Do we need any more engineering? We got to probably work on crosswalks and a few other things that they will require. We'll know more about that then after they get back to us about that, because the meeting was just about, I don't even think it was a month ago, so, we're just kind of waiting on them a little bit. But, we'll be in good shape for that. And then, the only other thing that I would bring up under building maintenance is, that now that it's converted from heat to cold, now that it's gotten warmer and the air conditioning is coming on, we may see some fun with our new thermostats again, in terms of it took us a while to get adjusted to how they worked and all when it was cold and we were trying to get heat. Now that it's warmer and we're gonna try to get cool, there may be some adjustment there as well, but the county is really good about it. Even if they have to have Johnson Controls come back, that won't be a problem. So I don't anticipate really any major issues with that. And otherwise, other than old buildings, we're in pretty good shape. The trees are looking pretty nice at Seneca, even with the dry weather. Those little trees are actually hanging in there. And they just recently came back and redid some of the landscaping in the front. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go by there and look, but they actually did come and rework some of the landscaping in the front again, just to freshen it up and make it good for this year as well. So the Lincoln Hills folks have done a nice job for us on that. And then, of course, we do have the fencing outside the Seneca branch now, so just anticipating more stuff coming in with the park.
I can give you an update on that, actually. We're working with a Clemson student. She's going to be working over the summer to design the space for us. She is her specialty is
Landscape architecture?
not landscape, but pollination areas for landscape architecture. And so she's going to be working a preliminary idea of what that space might look like. In the meantime, I think it's safe to publicly say that we're putting more soil down, and leveling the land off. I think once the new fiscal year, of course, everybody's waiting on July now, then you'll see some movement over there, because we can still do the landscaping as far as leveling things off, that type thing, and getting that ready. We are hoping to have a lot of really nice-looking green space and pathways and pollination and plants and all that.
And I do have, I think I might have gotten it the week I was on vacation, so I'm not sure I've actually had a chance to send it to you yet, but I do have some preliminary figures, speaking of money and budgets for next year and everything else. I do have some preliminary figures from Darcy Arnold,
Okay,
our
good.
youth services librarian, about the equipment or the, stuff you'll need for a story walk.
For the store walk,
So
yes.
I can get that to you as well.
So, yeah, so we're excited about that. And I was gonna ask you, what is parking ample at the Seneca branch right now? Are there days that you wish you had more, or, you know what I'm saying?
For the most part, and especially since we've kind of redone the way we're doing our programs for the summer in terms of the fact that we're gonna have the largest two programs, that being the South Carolina Aquarium and Safe Haven and Animal Adventures.
Right.
Both of those programs will be held just once at the Walhalla Performing Arts Center. We're okay most days. I mean, if they have, as we start to do more programs again and that kind of stuff, they did bingo yesterday. The Westminster branch is doing their first movie night since COVID on Thursday night. So as we start doing more stuff in there, we probably will see it, fill up. Most days, unless there is a big program, it works.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty full. I think I want to say we counted them up when we did the restriping, it's 32 or 33. I could be wrong on that. I can get you that information. I think right now we have 32, 33 spaces in the lot, and that's usually okay for most days.
Because we are factoring in planning an additional parking space on the other street over there, with the park, so that'll help the library out too.
Yeah. That, if a few people happen to park there and go into the library but also go to the park, I mean, it's not gonna be a big problem. And we just wanna make sure that didn't become the de facto.
Well, and
park.
I think that'll help the overflow on those days that you have special programming,
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
I don't think the park's gonna just be overflowing with people all day, every day, or anything
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask, you read about in the paper about the proposed Greenway project, and I know at one point they mentioned the Walhalla Library. Will that impact that Westview improvements that you're looking at, or is that considered?
We don't think so at
Okay.
this time. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion about, because of like the Benson feed and seed,
Right.
there's discussion about altering slightly the thing. When the plan first came out, there was, I don't know whether they meant to or not, but it looked as if, just from the maps and stuff, that they might try to use some of the Walhalla parking lot for that, and we kind of got with Ms. Melendez, the Walhalla City Council member, that was on our board at one time and said, please, let's not let them think that they can use county spaces for a library for parking there. So I kind of think that's off their radar. I don't know of anything that will impact the Westview thing, but I don't know that they're that far along yet either, because, there is a lot of discussion
Right.
about whether they're gonna fund it, continuing the funding for it, not funding it, and then that's gonna get them in trouble with the Appalachian Council of Governments, where they get grant from. It's a whole lot of politics involved in it, but I have not heard anything, nor, I don't wanna put words in his mouth, but I don't think Mr. Reed has heard anything from any of them that it would affect Westview.
Okay.
We have had some discussions with, Oconee Food Council about maybe putting in some kind of garden there in our green space, since we're not gonna have to use it for parking. That's very, very preliminary so far, but to my knowledge, the green trail would not necessarily affect that. I'm a little worried about how it, just because the right-of-way section where the library is in Walhalla, the building pretty much occupies the whole thing. So I don't know what kind of, like if they're gonna try to expand the sidewalk any, or would they narrow the street slightly, or I don't know what they're looking at, but I know they want bigger sidewalks for a combination of bike and walking and that kind of thing, and there's not a whole lot of space, particularly on that, South Broad side of our library. I mean, you walk about 3 steps out into the road, so it'll be interesting from that standpoint. Fortunately, we are a county building, so they can't just do whatever they want, but at the same time, it'll be kind of interesting to see what the plans are for, I know, because right now they're just showing like maps and all and see where it's gonna be. But when you get down to the details of what is the sidewalk gonna look like and that kind of stuff, it'll be kind of interesting to see what they want to do with that section.
I'm always the type that want to make sure everyone knows what everyone's doing.
Right.
So that we don't
To my knowledge,
wake
there
up too
has not
late.
been any discussion getting down that granular about how it would affect
Okay,
the library property.
I think right now, the Greenway project is in preliminary engineering stages with the firm that has been tasked with drawing it up. And I know in discussions that I've had with council folks that they took into account the library, the agricultural extension building, all of the buildings that sit in the Blue Ridge right-of-way, which would be our library, our parking lot, and the other buildings. But those were all taken into account in the initial planning, and there's no plans to affect anything
great.
with us other than possibly having more foot traffic along that way, which would be great for the library.
Yeah.
Good, thanks,
I
Glenn.
wouldn't object to that for the library. Have more people
Absolutely.
come by and come and get some information about what else is around while they happen to be walking on the trail. That would be fine.
Absolutely. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, we can move to a discussion of the state aid. Do you have an update on that, Claire?
Okay, just briefly, I will kind of give you an outline of what is going on with this. As I think I have mentioned in the previous meeting, and as hopefully you all know, I've sent emails out about it as well. We were seeking to, last year, we got $2.25 per capita in state aid. And so this year, we were seeking to we got it last year, but part of it came from lottery. The quarter increase came from lottery funds, which are not as reliable as recurring funds. So our request this year was that all the 225 come from recurring funds, that they accept and use the 2020 census numbers, which would, for the counties like us that gain in population, would mean, of course, more per capita because there's more people. Which would, for us, I believe it was 9,000 something more dollars. We had about a 4,000 something increase in population here in Oconee County from 2010 to 2020, so $2.25. I want to say it was 9,000 and some change, 9,500 and some change, something like that. We also wanted to increase the minimum per county. This doesn't really affect us because our population puts us slightly over the minimum. But for the smaller counties in the state, your Allendales, your Clarendon's, your Chesterfield counties, the smaller counties that rely on the minimum grant, we were trying to get it from $100,000 to $150,000. And for a small library system that may only be a county of 20, 30,000 people, 40,000 people, something like that, that's a huge increase. I mean, that's basically your director's salary right there. So we were able to get all of that in the House version. It was great, it was wonderful, it went over to the Senate. And then at a point in time during the Senate deliberations, an amendment was added to the Senate version of the budget. There was some upset about a book title, came out of Spartanburg County, book about reproduction. The person involved in this decided to make an issue out of it, and so in all of that, ended up putting language in the Senate version of the budget that said that libraries would have to certify that they had no items in the children's section that appealed to prurient interest.
To what? I'm sorry. To what?
To prurient interest, in other words, sexual,
Oh,
you know,
okay,
explicit,
okay,
in the children's section.
gotcha.
And so this, I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, as Martha pointed out, if you start having a state budget proviso that says that all libraries in South Carolina have to certify to whom, based on what standard, you know, it's kind of like that old thing from years ago in the Supreme Court. I don't know what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. Kind of the same thing. And really also it goes to home rule. If there's someone that objects to something that the professional library staff have purchased in our library, there's a procedure for that. They come to the library, they fill out a form, I look at it, if it's a children's book, the youth services librarian looks at it, we make a determination based on objective standards like reviews and, you know, all that kind of thing. And then if they don't like that, they have the opportunity to appeal it to you folks. You're the last word. You here in Oconee County are the last word on what books we feature in our library. So we are working, and the reason you haven't really heard about this much before now is because we're kind of working behind the scenes. The thinking on this is that there was a particular senator that decided to use what was a local issue. He had an issue with Spartanburg County Library. He decided to use a local issue to promote this kind of thing on a larger scale. So we're trying not to give the whole situation too much, attention. So what the directors in South Carolina had kind of decided to do, or are currently doing, working with the state library, is to target just the folks. As the House was one version, the Senate was one version, so they have to go to conference. And we are currently working with the legislators who are in the conference committee from both the House and the Senate and trying to convince them why, as it morphed into conference, it's now in a proviso. So what we're trying to do is just please ask the senators to accept the House version and not include the language that came out of this one amendment that ended up being like the last sentence in the proviso. So that's where we are currently. That's what we're working on. So that's why I haven't, enlisted your support or anything like that. I have reached out to Senator Alexander. He's one of the members of the conference committee. I have not heard back from him. But there are some other legislators on the conference committee who are strong library supporters. So, we're just kind of trying to work behind the scenes. If, heaven forbid, it stays in the budget that gets submitted to the governor, then there may need to be more public outcry about it. And, I will certainly let you all know when that time comes. But as of the moment, the directors in South Carolina, the state library, were kind of trying to work quietly just to not give this any more oxygen than it really deserves. But it is an important issue, not only for just the whole freedom to read and everything else, but there are legislators who, as you all know, don't want to hear that. But it's very important for home rule, because if they can tell us, okay, you can't have a particular book in the children's section, what are they gonna tell us next? Okay, you can't use certain money to buy this, you can't use certain, I mean, our state aid has some limitations already because it is federal pass-through money. So we do have certain things, like we can't spend it on capital improvements, we can't, do certain other things with it. It can be used to pay for books, for staff, for, some improvements in computers and that kind of stuff, but it can't be used for capital improvements. I can't go out and use it for a new building, anything like that, or improvements to a building. I can't go out and buy a new air conditioning system with it or something like that. So there's already certain restrictions on state aid, but if they get to a point where they can start determining content for libraries and they do it at the state level, it's kind of a Pandora's box. So right now we are working quietly behind the scenes on that. And hopefully we will manage to just get that. They'll accept the House version and we'll get the increases that we were really hoping for, which are still in there. I mean, in both versions, in the House and the Senate version, we get 225 out of recurring funds. We get them to accept the lottery, or the census numbers, and we get the 150 per county minimum for the smaller counties. That's all in there. But obviously what we're concerned about is that one amendment that turned out to be in the Senate version as the last sentence in the proviso. It's proviso 27.1, if you're interested in going and looking at it. I can provide you the actual language if you want it. I've got it from our directors. So I can provide that actual language to you all if you want to look at it. But right now we are working as the State Library Directors Group, as APLA, and with the state library. Also, the South Carolina Library Association has put out a statement about it. We kind of didn't do that from the director standpoint because we wanted to kind of work with individual directors contacting their own legislators, as I have done with Senator Alexander. That's kind of the approach we're sticking with right now. We do have a very competent legislative committee for APLA that has been doing this for 22 years. So they know how to read the tea leaves and they know who to talk to and when. I'm not saying we're out of the woods, but chances are pretty good that, we won't necessarily have to deal with this. But I just wanted to make you all aware of it as well, so you know what was going on at the state level.
Does anyone have any questions for Blair? Is there any no? No? Okay. Does anyone have any additional topics or we need to discuss? Not? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.